Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Executive Talks brought to you by ACCM. I'm Glenn, and today we have Mo Hatcham joining us from Dubai. Welcome to the conversation, Mo.
Thank you for having me here.
Before we start, I'd like to introduce our guest. Mo Hatcham is a UX and product strategy consultant with over a decade of experience helping businesses transform complex workflows into scalable, user-informed solutions. His work spans SaaS, media tech, and e-commerce, with a focus on product delivery, systems thinking, and AI augmented workflows. He is also pursuing his MBA at Boston University. So, Mo, can you tell us what is UX or CX design and what type of companies are in this field?
All right, yeah, thanks for the question. So, at its core, UX and CX design, it's really about shaping how humans interact with technology, but also of other services you might offer. So, it sits at that intersection of psychology, technology, and design, and really makes complexity more usable, trustworthy, maybe even enjoyable. And the landscape itself is fairly broad, and it really depends on the maturity of the individual firms within these different industries. So in some firms, UX is make the screen look good, so it's really reductive UI work. But in others, UX and CX is really that connective tissue. So it's the glue between marketing, sales, product, and tech. And it's why you'll find UX everywhere. So fintechs will need UX to simplify payments and also to earn trust. It takes a lot of trust to give someone your card information. Retailers needed to build loyalty, and media tech, which is my current focus, needs it to help modernize decades of archaic systems and earn the trust to actually take the step to move forward. To make this a bit more concrete, so I work in media tech platforms where UX is really that bridge between legacy hardware-heavy software and cloud-driven, story-driven workflows. So many broadcasters nowadays in the media tech, they're tied down by old contracts and dependencies, and what I jokingly call, but not really joking, Windows 98 interfaces, because when you see those software in use, they come from that era. My job is really to unravel that web, map those user flows, and just really lower that cost of adoption so that it's more costly for the customer to not adopt the system I'm designing for. Um, so that's basically it.
Cool. Well, that's enlightening. And I'm sure a lot of people are not very familiar with that concept, but thank you for bringing that and elaborating on that. So, how does UX or CX design create value for businesses, and what are your roles in this process?
All right, so UX and CX, they create values in three ways. So the first one is compressing complexity. So the complexity itself, that never goes away. That's always going to be there. But UX makes it more manageable so it doesn't feel complex. If you've seen a news agency's workflow chart, or even maybe your own agency's workflow chart, you're going to see there's a lot of pile of tangled wires. And UX's job is really to untangle those wires and make them more easy to navigate and make people more confident navigating them. Second, adoption is, well, there's adoption and retention. UX lowers the cost of adoption of a new software or service. And it also simultaneously raises the cost of living with Saran. So it's both an offensive and a defensive mode at the same time. And I like to call it like the what's it called? Like a Hotel California effect. You can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Hmm.
The idea is that it's not through entrapment though, but through usability. People want to use their software, so they never leave. And that mode really becomes very sticky. And last one is trust. So humans don't like surprises. We don't even like happy surprises for most parts. We like to know what's happening when we do something. So good UX makes sure that those outcomes are predictable. So when you click on a button, you know what happens, you know that it happened, and you know why. That confidence is really what enables the change.
Thank you. Fascinating. Fascinating. So the value chain of your industry, I'm trying to look from a more macro perspective now because our viewers, most of them are investors and they're interested in diving into different sectors. So, if we look at from the macro perspective, are there any macroeconomic trends or variables impacting your industry? right now or in the foreseeable future? If so, what do you expect to see?
All right. So I'm going to have to frame this from the lens of media tech, and maybe not necessarily through a purely economic lens, but looking at the lens of how the industry is kind of facing the challenges it's facing now, or the energy and direction it's heading into. So first of all, there's cloud. So broadcasters and traditionally they've been locked into those really expensive hardwares for decades, and the incumbents would usually lock you into a contract with their software, with their preferred suppliers. That's starting to break down. They're losing that kind of grip, and you're starting to see a lot of cloud native tools. So what you see as a result of that is there's lower costs. So you're no longer tied to specific hardware deals. There's a SaaS model, and even the ability to do, let's say, remote production, because that's something that was very unthinkable 10 years ago. So we're starting to really see a shift in dynamics in the industry. So it's no longer just the three or four big incumbents across the world. Now more startups are starting to show up. Um, Second is just looking at how news agencies or newsrooms are functioning in media tech, or any kind of media agency that looks at disseminating information to audiences, is story-driven workflows. So traditionally, what we see is TV, radio, and digital. All these channels working within the same organization. Usually worked in silos, and they'd even compete like who's going to get that scoop and who's going to take that out. We're seeing that organizations themselves now they're collapsing in that sense, making it more about the story itself. So there's a shared space, a single source of truth, and their focus now is really on faster corroboration and getting that news out across all different channels in record time and with fewer staff. So that links back to the idea of lowering costs. And I guess last but not least, and it's the hot word of the decade, I guess, and it's AI and automation. And it's where it gets a bit exciting, but maybe a bit dark as well. Automation is already compressing roles that we're seeing. So we're seeing that producers and directors are kind of compressing into the same role. Um, Sometimes even editors are being lumped into that kind of compression. Uh, I mean, for example, I've also worked on systems that let one operator run what once took a crew of 25. So that's a very seismic shift because of automation itself. And then when we introduce AI here, that's another layer, and that amplifies the speed and the quality of the work you're starting to do. And in media tech, and I think across many industries, really, what we're starting to see is that AI adoption is still superficial in the sense that most of it's kind of like just bolted on. So with media tech, it's maybe you see transcription, captioning, summarization services. They're nice for demos, but they're not really core to the workflows. And I think the real disruption here is going to really come from when AI stops being cosmetic and really becomes integral to that process. And maybe that's where it's worth like looking into the human costs that come with this. Because what we're starting to see is the workforce is starting to polarize. And in that sense, it means you're either going to become a broad generalist spanning, let's say, multiple roles, or a hyper specialist where you really dig into your niche and you work with the brains and systems. I think that middle ground is starting to disappear. And I think this is true across different industries. Um, and another thing is we start to also see like adoption of these new tech. It's outpacing the retraining rate. So you're seeing entire skill sets really becoming obsolete faster than companies can adapt. And I kind of wrestle with this personally because I know my work is going to contribute to it. Inevitably, it's inevitable that it's going to contribute to this. And the question I really want to ask is like, what happens to someone who spent their entire life as a teleprompter operator, for example, and they wake up the next day and find out that their skill sets become obsolete and they don't have enough runway to actually retrain. And that's not really hypothetical, it's happening today. I don't have an answer. It's an uncomfortable question, but I think it's one worth discussing because there is a real social human cost to it. And if no one takes responsibility, I think that means we're all responsible for it. Now, that's the darker cloud passing, but for investors, what this kind of means is it's a risk and opportunity, right? So you can see firms are starting to chase lower costs because of this new tech, but you really want to focus on firms that also adopt AI intentionally, not just for the sake of adopting it. And I think it's those companies that are very intentional with their adoption and maybe even build retraining programs and reinvest in their people. I think those are the ones that are going to show sustained growth going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Mo. I'm sure our viewers will have gained an understanding of the industry and the AI wave and through your professional lens. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for watching Executive Talks brought to you by ACCM. Until next time, and if my job is not taken away by AI, we'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching.